architecturally, and Chris, you know as well as I do, we don't like to compliment threat actors, but architecturally, wow, it worked. I know some developer teams who would love to be this automated or who would love to be this integrated. And once again, my big takeaway for this is, we've got threat actors who are taking infrastructure and tools that are available to all of us and just putting a cap on it, Chris, almost like, oh, this is exactly the way we want you to do it. This is exactly the way. If you read the blog posts and you watch the YouTube videos and you learn about the integrations and how they do everything, this is exactly how these tools are meant to be integrated and dropped into place. And I'm looking at it as like, well, someone paid attention. Unfortunately, it was just nefarious individuals.
Welcome to the Cybersecurity Defenders Podcast Weekly Intel Chat. My name's Christopher Luft. I'm one of the co-founders of LimaCharlie, and I will be your host. Joining me today to break down the cybersecurity news being shared by the awesome InfoSec community is the one and only Matt Bromley. And don't forget, this podcast is brought to you by LimaCharlie, maker of the SecOps Cloud platform, infrastructure for security operations. Think of it as a backend for your MSSP, where everything is built API first. Scale with ease and confidence as your business grows. You can start today for free at limacharlie.io. Now let's get into it. Hello, Matt Bromley. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing well. How are you? Happy Thanksgiving week to you. Wait, sorry. Happy American Thanksgiving week to you.
That's right. We already did that back in October. We're so far ahead of you guys.
That's right. I don't know if I'd say ahead, maybe early. Maybe early.
Maybe we're that far behind.
Yeah, or you're 10 months behind. One of the two.
Yeah.
Jokes aside.
Yeah, it's great to see you. We didn't get a chance last week. I was in LA for the LimaCharlie yearly all hands. So nice. Great to connect with the team in person. You can't replace the FaceTime. I'd never go back from working remotely. It's a big part of how I integrate work with my life, but it sure is nice to see people face to face and talk about those big ideas and plan the year.
Absolutely. I actually was in Northern California myself. So we were both in the state of California, but weren't close enough to make an episode out of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I know we're a little bit time constrained today, so I got one thing I'm going to bring up before we jump into it.
Let's do it.
If you've been a fan of the show for any amount of time, you probably know that every year I help spearhead a little thing called Cybersecurity Cares. You can learn all about it at cybersecurity-cares.com. The TLDR on it is essentially for the first 2 weeks of December, we rally the community to raise funds for a good cause, culminating in a 12-hour streamathon modeled off the telethons of days gone by, where we get a bunch of people together and try and make it fun and entertaining and raise money. So over the last couple of years, we've raised about 30 grand each year. So, not where I want us to get to, but not nothing to shake a stick at. And this year, we're going to be doing something a little different. It's been a hard year for everybody. Economy's not doing super great. So instead of supporting an external organization, which we've done in the past, we've decided to turn our efforts inwards and support some really great nonprofits operating in the cybersecurity space. So I don't want to go through what the missions are for each of them. They're all great, though. You can go read about it on the site. It's a Diana Initiative, Mental Health Hackers, Sober and Cyber, Black Girls Hack, and the Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu. So some really great stuff, and we're going to get a lot of really cool stuff going for the Streamathon. So if you're a company and you want to sponsor, get at us. If you're a volunteer and you want to get involved, get at us. If you just want to know when the Streamathon is taking place, December 18th, you can also get at us and we'll put you on a list to let you know. So I'll probably talk about this every week between now and then, but this is your first warning. So
it's not a warning. It's a good thing.
Yes,
it's a good thing.
Yeah. Cool. And like I said, we're time constrained, so I'll jump right in. The first one I got for you is something I think we're all kind of aware of right now, and that is AI is fulfilling a long-standing hope of security teams. It's taking over repetitive, low-skill tasks like log reviews, alert triage, and basic investigations. This is freeing up analysts to focus on higher-order work and ideally reducing burnout in early career roles. But there's a flip side to that efficiency gain. Those same repetitive tasks were foundational training tools. They built the pattern recognition and intuition that senior defenders rely on in high-pressure situations. As automations ramp up, there's a growing concern that the next generation of security leaders might lack this critical hands-on experience. Visa, CISO, Subra, Kamarsawamy, sorry, that's the first time I'm reading that, and others highlight that while AI accelerates workflows, it doesn't replace the art and science of defense. The strategic concern is that removing the apprenticeship layer, the part where junior analysts learn by doing, may erode long-term capability. This isn't just a cybersecurity problem. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei, for example, has raised similar alarms more broadly, warning that AI might eliminate many entry-level white-collar jobs across industries. Recruiters like Mr. Diamond are already seeing this trend. Roles that required 5 entry-level hires now only justified 2 or 3. So yeah, I think this is something we're all aware of. You know, it's hard for people coming out of school to get their first role right now. I'm sure a lot of people listening are feeling that pain. And I think not hiring these roles is going to set us up for failure in the future when people don't have the experience to know what's going on under the hood when the AI doesn't work for some reason.
Yeah, Chris, I akin this a lot to, I guess, kind of any trade, if you will. I don't know if SOC analysts fall in the category of known trades at this point, but I mean, I think they do. I think it's more of it's a combination of an art and a science. I think what's being called out here, and I don't know if I see this as that big of an issue, if you will. Like, you know, I understand they're calling out, and from a security perspective, usually folks getting their chops in and, you know, analyzing the logs and looking at the data and understanding how the organization is structured. Like, I understand the takeaways from an entry level perspective. But Chris, I would also argue that back in the day, the guy who made the chair was the same guy who cut down the tree, and that's changed. So things have been, you know, commoditized or outsourced for the better. Right. We don't someone who is extremely creative, and I'm going to stick with my same analogy because I did it. The guy who creates the chair might not be the best person to actually cut down the tree. And I would argue and say that some of the repetitive, boring tasks, if you will, and I'm only using boring because it's quoted so many times in this article here, grunt work, if you will, and stuff like that. You know, I feel like that's something that can easily be kind of offshored to AI, for lack of a better term, offshored, outsourced, whatever way you want to frame it. I don't know where the AI servers sit when you run that question against them. But my point being, I understand the idea of, oh, well, you know, here in the basement, this is where everyone learns how the organization works, and they learn what the noise is, and this is how they build their skills and that kind of stuff. And if we take that away, what is a junior role going to look like? And I mean, maybe I'm looking at this a little bit differently, Chris, but I'm kind of looking at it as like, so then give your analyst something else to do. I feel like one of the disconnects that's been drawn here is, oh, well, we have so many alerts and so much stuff to look at that we need to hire a bunch of analysts to just sit and look at alerts. And well, if AI does it, well, what are those analysts going to do? And it's like, if you're admitting that you were used to hire people to do boring, tedious work, I mean, maybe attrition rates wouldn't be, you know, so high in certain areas, or maybe we wouldn't need so many people. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, Chris, I've met, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of security analysts in my life through teaching, through different jobs and work and stuff like that. And none of them have ever said to me, man, I wish I had more to do tomorrow. I'm so bored. There's nothing going on here. So I'm like, if AI takes out the boring and tedious stuff, maybe we can start to train security analysts to focus on the things that matter, for lack of a better term, right? Like, get them involved in patching cycles, just to rely on our own fodder here a little bit. Get them involved in that. Get them involved with the IT team. Maybe look at a true IT/SecOps cross-functionality training. Get those folks involved with network engineering. Like, the idea of, oh, staring at boring, tedious alerts all day long is the only way to build your chops up as a security analyst. I disagree with that sentiment. And Chris, one of my leading examples here is whenever I work with an IT admin or a network engineer and transition them into a security role, they're amazing analysts because they already understand how the environment works. Mm-hmm. And at no point did they ever say, oh, I only know this because I spent hours scrolling through thousands of alerts every single day. So I'm not going to say I have a passionate response to this article, but and hopefully my voice isn't raising too much, right? But one of the things that I wanted to like bring out here is, and it's called out specifically, log detection, alert triage, drift detection. These tasks were how generations of defenders traditionally learned the cybersecurity trade. No, it wasn't, because they never got past log review.
Yeah.
They never got past the first sentence. I don't know where the idea of the average security analyst doing drift detection came into play, because they don't have time to get there. Yeah. And if they have time to get there now, then awesome. Let's train the next army of triage experts, and then let's just level everyone up. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's one of those things where, who's going to do the boring, repetitive stuff now that we have AI? I'm like, hopefully no one.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I had any advice for anybody out there who is starting their career, I'd learn the AI tools, because there's some really amazing stuff going on, and I think that's what's going to separate you from people that are looking to read boring logs.
Yeah,
as Matt put it.
Yeah, and also, I mean, again, not to harp on it too much, but this kind of idea of this idea here of what I'm looking for here, like repetitive tasks like log review and alert triage, are how analysts learn what normal and abnormal look like. Folks, there are other ways to find normal and abnormal in your environment that humans can consume in a different way. I mean, the idea of, I'll frame it to you this way. And Chris, here's another example. If I give you a 100,000 line Excel sheet of financial data and you read it top to bottom, it doesn't make you an accountant.
Yeah.
At the end. So scrolling through dashboards of log alerts doesn't make you a SOC analyst.
It happens to be something computers are really good at, right?
And it happens to be something computers are really good at.
All right. Well, I'll stop shaking my old man stick at the sky and move on to the next AI article we have here.
Oh, don't worry. AI takes over the agenda today, I think.
Yeah. So Anthropic has disclosed what it believes is the first documented case of a largely autonomous AI-orchestrated cyber espionage campaign. Designated GTG-1002 and attributed with high confidence to a Chinese state-sponsored threat actor, this operation involved the use of Anthropic's own Claude Code model as a core execution engine. The AI was manipulated to perform tasks across the full intrusion lifecycle: reconnaissance, exploitation, credential harvesting, lateral movement, data collection, and documentation, with an estimated 80 to 90% of tactical operations carried out autonomously. Human operators participated only at key decision points, such as approving exploitation or finalizing data exfiltration. Well, it's nice to know the bad actors are also keeping a human in the loop. The attack targeted around 30 entities, including tech companies, financial institutions, and government agencies, with a handful of confirmed compromise. The threat actor constructed a framework around Claude using open standards like the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. This architecture allowed Claude to act in a role-played penetration testing context, bypassing safeguards that would normally restrict its behavior. The model was presented with modular tasks, scanning for vulnerabilities or testing credentials, that appeared innocuous in isolation, allowing the broader malicious activity remain undetected until the campaign was underway. So yeah, in a way, I'm not surprised. I think the thing that does surprise me about this, if anything, is why they were using a commercial model with safeguards versus DeepSeek or something, which I think is, probably not at 100% the same level, but also quite advanced.
Yeah. Chris, my answer to that question is, if it ain't broke. And I don't mean anything against Anthropic. I use Anthropic a lot in my daily life. I love the service. I think Claude's a fantastic LLM. But if the adversary, obviously clearly built their infrastructure out prior to this attack, utilizing Claude, and then deployed it with Claude in place, and if it ain't broke, as long as the LLM works and returns what they need it to. So, turn the mirror around, Anthropic, right? Like, hey, they were able to find success on your platform. I'm not blaming anybody at Anthropic. I'm just saying, like, the reason they, and Chris, this is kind of an answer to your question, but also in response to Anthropic's post here. The reason they used Anthropic is because it probably gave the best answers.
Yeah.
And it probably did exactly what they needed it to do.
And it's built for coding.
Exactly. Built for coding. And the adversaries were able to insert themselves into the loop at exactly the right place and whatnot. They built out the orchestration capabilities and the different layers here on Claude. And we're looking at an example of how they use their different MCPs and how that was linked together and whatnot. And architecturally, and Chris, you know as well as I do, we don't like to compliment threat actors, but architecturally, wow, it worked. And it's probably taking advantage of, and not in a bad way, but maybe I should just say the word utilizing. It's probably utilizing all the different things that have been built out. And Chris, I said this before on this podcast, probably many times. What's the difference between software and malware? And it's how you use the software. So this idea that, Claude Code's being used by malicious actors, or AI is being used by malicious actors, and it's like, if I take a network stack and I turn it into a C2, it doesn't mean Claude knew what I was going to do with it when we wrote the network stack together. Yeah. And this is one of those situations where I don't think the adversary was like, hey, Claude, I want you to manage my C2 infrastructure because I'm going to hack into something, right? There's probably a lot of prompt engineering, some ways to kind of guardrail and curtail the data around and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the humans were in the loop where they needed to be. And I guess the other weird side of it too, Chris, is they were only in the loop where they needed to be when they needed to be. As weird as that sounds, it was actually a very good use of AI because it did everything it needed to do. And I know this sounds kind of a weird take on this whole thing. I'm not going to sit here and scream, oh my God, the threat actors are doing all sorts of new stuff. No, right? Same old tactics and techniques are there. It's just an additional, it's a lower barrier to entry for some additional things that they had to do. But I find it fascinating here in the way they constructed this. I know some developer teams who would love to be this automated or who would love to be this integrated. And once again, my big takeaway for this is, we've got threat actors who are taking infrastructure and tools that are available to all of us and just putting a cap on it, Chris, almost like, oh, this is exactly the way we want you to do it. This is exactly the way, if you read the blog posts and you watch the YouTube videos and you learn about the integrations and how they do everything, this is exactly how these tools are meant to be integrated and dropped into place. And I'm looking at it as like, well, someone paid attention. Unfortunately, it was just nefarious individuals. And no offense to any defenders or anything anywhere, right? Enterprises have a lot of other concerns in place, like what data they ship up and who's looking at what and privileges and access controls and all that kind of stuff. The adversaries can just fire whatever they want to an AI and they don't really care about who's watching or who's looking. But this is how the infrastructure, all the tools are here to make it work. They didn't hack Anthropic. They didn't abuse Claude. They didn't sponsor their own LLM. They simply just operated within the programmatic confines that have been created and found success with it. So again, adversaries are unfortunately finding success in areas where defenders are playing catch up.
So in terms of capability, this hack marks a significant escalation. Previous Vibe hacking cases still required active human guidance throughout, but this campaign saw the AI independently generating payloads, testing for vulnerabilities, validating exploits, and even parsing and categorizing stolen data for intelligence value. At peak activity, the AI was executing multiple operations per second across numerous concurrent campaigns. In one example, Claude independently enumerated a target's internal services, identified admin interfaces, and developed custom SSRF exploitation payloads, all before the human operator even reviewed the findings. However, Anthropic's report notes limitations. While Claude could perform complex offensive tasks, it occasionally hallucinated, fabricating credential access or misclassifying publicly available data as sensitive. This required human operators to validate some of the AI's findings before proceeding. Despite this, the overall operations pace and scope demonstrate that highly capable agentic AI now lowers the resource barrier for executing state-level campaigns, especially given that the attacker relied primarily on open-source security tools rather than custom malware. Anthropic's response includes account bans, coordinating with authorities, and enhancements to internal detection systems. They're also developing proactive systems for identifying autonomous cyber attacks earlier in the life cycle. The broader implication is that the offensive use of AI is not theoretical, it's operational. And as more groups adopt similar orchestration frameworks, security teams will need to re-architect defensive strategies to match. Anthropic emphasizes that defensive AI must now be treated as essential infrastructure, not optional tooling, and that broader collaboration on detection techniques and safety controls is required to keep pace with adversarial adaptation. So this will be really interesting to see how it plays out as they put in more guardrails. I imagine this is going to start running into how people are using the tool legitimately, and ultimately there's going to be no way, to your earlier point, to detect what's good code and bad code, because it really is just how you use it.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add in here too, Chris, is they're going to continue to drop in different guardrails and barriers and things like that. And I think you're going to see the folks at Anthropic probably get a lot better about finding ways to lock this down. But unfortunately, and AI is this really weird surface or this weird frontier. I'm seeing the word frontier in the article, so I'm going to use it here because in a lot of cases, you don't know how it's going to be used against you until it's used against you. And unfortunately, again, because software is software until it's used maliciously and then it just becomes malware, there is no tag or code or something that says, oh, this is definitely malware, right? The intentions and the purpose and the capabilities can speak largely towards it being malicious, but it's not a guarantee. So it's hard to say, oh, don't write software or don't allow this or don't allow that. Now, I've gone like very blatant. I've gone to, different LLMs and I've said things like, hey, I am running a pen test. I need you to help me construct an attack path or an attack plan. And no matter how I try to say I am a security researcher and this is approved and allowed, it says I cannot give you that information. So there are some really, and this was all testing, of course, right? There are some really basic guardrails in place, but the flip side of that, Chris, is there's also third-party tools that can kind of skirt around that, if you will. I cannot ask Claude, for example, to SSH into a system and do something for me, but I can have a third-party tool that utilizes Claude do that for me. So sometimes there's like little bolt-ons or MCPs that can do stuff that the basic API model won't allow you to do. And number one, and then number two is, again, they don't know what the adversary is going to do until the adversary does it. Yeah. I go back to my non-coding example, which is take this paragraph and make it sound like I'm a native English speaker. Are you applying for a job or are you writing a spear phishing email? Like, what's the difference between the two? Oh, it's the content. It's like, okay, then like there's ways to navigate through that. And until the folks at Anthropic and ChatGPT or OpenAI and whatnot come back and say, hey, 400,000 requests, we're trying to convert a message into better English. And based on some heuristics, we think 30% of those were spear phishing emails, we think. But it's never going to be a one-for-one. Like it is exactly 39.72%, right? It's always going to be a best guesstimate because we are dealing with a tool that can easily straddle good and bad within the same millisecond of activity.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about this some more in the future.
I don't doubt it.
Let's go on. The new JackFix variant of the ClickFix attack is gaining traction, and unlike its predecessors, it combines both social engineering and technical evasion tactics to bypass existing defenses more effectively. At its core, JackFix still relies on persuading users to manually execute commands via the Windows Run dialog, but it introduces an intense psychological component, a fake system crash. Victims are lured through phishing or malvertising, most often via spoofed porn sites, and upon interaction, a full-screen fake Windows blue screen appears. This screen simulates a critical update, complete with a false progress bar and blocked keyboard shortcuts, trapping users in a believable crisis scenario. According to Acronis researcher Eliad Kimhi, this added pressure mimics early ransomware tactics where attackers lock the screen instead of encrypting files. Banking on panic to drive action, what sets JackFix apart is how much more compelling it is than previous iterations. The traditional click-fix tricks may have relied on technical confusion, but JackFix leverages emotional manipulation. As a result, the campaign is seeing much wider adoption with hundreds of new samples submitted to VirusTotal, mostly in the US, but also across Europe, far exceeding those actively seen in prior click-fix waves. This one kind of brought me back. I remember, I'd say circa 2004, I was on Napster, and all of a sudden my screen looked like the something bad was happening and files were being deleted. And
early ransomware days, faking a blue screen to make it seem like something was happening there. Yeah, no, I remember these ones, Chris, for sure. I think there's a really interesting take on this here, which is that idea of introducing, panic, introducing stress. And this is all sort of an emotional tactic to get the users to do a thing and whatnot. Again, fake versions of sites hit with a fake Windows blue screen and whatnot. It speaks to the folks that they're going after and they're targeting, unfortunately, but it creates that sense of, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I'm sure, and I haven't seen any of the blue screens myself, Chris, but I'm sure they're probably hit with, your computer is about to be shut down, or, the FBI is watching you or something like that, right? There's always these scare tactics involved. And in that case, it creates, unfortunately, an emotional gap where cybersecurity attack, or I shouldn't say cybersecurity, I should just say adversaries succeed, right? It's in that emotional negotiation stage, albeit digital, but that emotional negotiation stage of you've done something wrong. Well, no, I haven't. Your computer is locked up and it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And boom, that's how we get them to click a thing or, do a whatever, like get your campaign successful. And as you mentioned, anxiety inducing phishing lure in an old fashioned screen lock, really reaching back in time here in the playbook, but finding success with it. And to the adversaries who, it's like a clothing fashion cycle, Chris, right? What's old is new again.
What's old is new again. That's right.
And here we go. It's
about a 20-year cycle too, which I feel like that's the one that clothing runs on. So
2025, here we are talking about fake Windows blue screens and then getting folks to copy and paste code in the Windows run dialogue. And for anyone who's like, what year is it? I'm like, they're still finding success with it.
Yeah. So from a technical perspective, JackFix introduces several mechanisms to avoid detection by security tools. For example, the malicious JavaScript that copies attack code to the clipboard along with the code itself is encoded into arrays and reassembled only at runtime in memory. This makes signature-based detection far more difficult. JackFix also uses conditional content delivery. If a target lands on the malware hosting URL outside of the attack flow, say via a direct visit or threat researcher, it redirects them to benign sites like Steam or Google. But if the visitor comes through the actual phishing campaign, the malicious content is delivered. This bypasses many URL and traffic-based detection mechanisms. The payload is equally sophisticated. The downloaded PowerShell script is not only heavily obfuscated, but also persistent. It repeatedly prompts the user for elevated permissions until they comply. Once granted, it disables many Microsoft Defender protections and deploys a large number of malware samples in parallel. These include well-known info stealers like Redline, VDAR 2.0, Amity, and Radamanthus, along with various loaders. The scale of this deployment led Acronis to describe it as a spray and pray operation designed to extract as much data as possible regardless of the victim profile. While some countermeasures remain effective, such as disabling Windows Run for non-technical users via group policy or limiting full-screen capabilities in browsers, the JackFix campaign clearly demonstrates how easily human factors can be exploited when paired with basic but effective obfuscation techniques. The combination of psychological pressure and runtime evasion sets a new bar for social engineering attacks involving user-executed code. So yeah, this is just like, let's throw everything at it and see what happens. Win by numbers.
Spray and pray, and just keep blasting folks with those emotional responses, and you'll definitely find some success. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but the adversaries they're going to find enough success here that they'll call it successful.
All right, so we're getting close to time. Should we try and burn through this last one?
Let's get into it. I want to talk about this one for sure.
Yeah, I thought this one was neat just because it's a little bit out there, not something we normally talk about. So researchers at Morphosec have uncovered a 6-month-long campaign weaponizing .blend files. So these are the native to Blender, the open source 3D modeling software, to deliver a variant of the StealC information stealer. The campaign involves uploading malicious 3D assets to platforms like CG Trader. These files contain embedded Python scripts, specifically a rig_UI.py component, which is executed automatically if Blender's auto-run feature is enabled. I'm wondering if that's enabled by default. This provides a direct vector for arbitrary code execution, which attackers use to drop additional payloads. Once a malicious .blend file is opened, the embedded Python script downloads a PowerShell dropper that retrieves 2 zip archives. One archive contains the latest version of the StealC version 2, while the second delivers another Python-based stealer, StealC v2. That sounds like the same one. First observed in April 2025. It's a multifunctional info stealer with capabilities for extracting data from 23 browsers, 100 web plugins, 15 cryptocurrency wallets, plus various VPNs, messaging apps, and email clients. The use of Blender as a delivery vehicle is particularly notable as it typically runs on physical machines with GPUs, meaning sandbox-based detection mechanisms are often bypassed. Yeah, so a couple things. Interesting delivery mechanism. I know people that work in like animation and 3D space, playing around even, will go look for free public assets on various sites. So it's easy to go download something and run it on your computer. And then like these machines of people that do this kind of work are going to have really powerful GPUs in general, which is kind of why I was blown away there was no cryptocurrency mining going on here. Yeah,
I mean, they're looking for cryptocurrency credentials, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
I think they do look for those plugins or they look for wallets and things like that. The other thing I found interesting here, Chris, and I think you and I have talked about this before with other types of malware and campaigns, is whenever you see a really novel delivery mechanism like this, it usually speaks a lot to their target base or their victim base. if you will. This is definitely like not a piece of software that everyone is going to be running. This is not your average enterprise bear going to be doing this, right? This is something that's going to be a unique and targeted group, and specifically who they're going after. And then furthermore, the delivery mechanism is the hope that the user is auto-running Python scripts from a directory and that these scripts will automatically execute upon file opening. And Chris, I feel like that's such a unique funnel that there's got to be a specific target of folks here, right? Yeah. There's got to be a specific approach and a reason for going down this road. And I think the threat actors have kind of figured out, hey, the people we want to go after, this is what their environments look like, or we see that it's in there. Sometimes, and I don't know this for sure, and I'm not making stuff up, I'm just commenting on previous investigations or previous experience. Sometimes when it's this targeted, there's like a particular organization that they're going after, or there's a particular group or subset of people or something like that. But interesting nonetheless, and a really, really cool article to go over. But yeah, definitely different from what we normally see.
And yeah, I just checked with the robot that auto run feature is not turned on by default. So it's definitely a subset of Blender users, which are already fairly niche.
Yeah.
Morphosec notes that this campaign shares TTPs with a previous operation involving Russian-speaking actors who impersonated the Electronic Frontier Foundation to infect gaming communities with Steel C and Pyramid C2. These similarities include the use of decoy content, obfuscated malware deployment, and stealthy execution flows. The use of Blender is strategic. Not only is it trusted software in creative and technical communities, but its support for embedded Python makes it an effective vector when security settings like auto-run are enabled. Blender's own documentation acknowledges the risk, noting that embedded Python scripts are useful for advanced features like rigging, but can also execute unrestricted code if improperly used. Since .blend files can carry Python that auto-executes on file open, this gives threat actors a mechanism to exploit user trust in community asset repositories. Morphosec advises users to disable auto-run by default unless the file source is explicitly trusted. This campaign highlights an emerging trend exploiting non-traditional software ecosystems with plugin or scripting capabilities, particularly those that are GPU-intensive and therefore less likely to be monitored in virtualized environments. It also underlines a continuous evolution of Steel C, which is becoming a modular platform capable of broad data exfiltration across consumer and enterprise software. So, yeah, that's that. Be careful with your rigging and your animation in Blender.
And turn off those auto-run scripts. That should be a piece of security advice everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah. Awesome, Matt. We made it. We even came in 2 minutes under time.
Awesome. Chris, always a pleasure when we get to meet up. And I know it's not your holiday, but it is a holiday for you. So enjoy the rest of your week, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Matt. Take care, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
See ya.
And that brings us to the end of another Intel Chat. You can support this show by sharing your favorite episodes with a friend, or subscribing and giving us a rating or leaving a comment on your chosen podcast platform. If you want to be part of the conversation and access the intel we talk about in real time, you can join our community forum at community.limacharlie.io. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you on the next one. The Cybersecurity Defenders podcast is hosted and produced by Christopher Luft. The show is co-produced and edited by Sam Blake with graphics by Amr Al-Khatib. Sponsored by LimaCharlie, scalable infrastructure for your security services. Visit limacharlie.io to get started for free.